What's up, guys? We got the Suburban back at the Reversion shop. We're going to try to take care of some of the power steering leaks, the loose steering it's got. Redhead Performance sent over a steering box that we're going to replace this worn out one with. So let's see how this one goes. I'm sure, as you guys know, when it comes to these older Chevys, they tend to leak. I have a power steering leak that I can't really figure out. I think it's the Hydro Boost, so we're just going to throw a new unit on it, see if that takes care of it. We're also going to do the steering box. I actually replaced that one once already, but it's from AutoZone. It sucks. It's already leaking. The steering's super loose. I just hate it. We should have gotten Redhead to start with, but we were kind of in a bind and didn't have the time. So now it bit us, and we're going to be doing this job again. But that just means more content for you guys. While we're at it, just look at that blower. This thing is sick. I cannot wait to get this thing wrapped up. All right, well, now I got the power steering lines all off of the Hydro Boost. I've got a pan down there just checking whatever residuals coming off the truck. And now I'm gonna jump inside, and there are 4 bolts that go through the firewall here and a clip for the brake. And once I get that off, this whole Hydro Boost unit's gonna come off. Now, just to take you inside the truck real quick, you can see there's the 4 bolts that poke through the firewall here. They're a little tricky to see and get to. And then up here in the brake switch area, there's a little clip you gotta pop to get this whole assembly apart. It's really not too bad, just a little tight in here. Now we've got the Hydro Boost unit off. We're just cleaning up the area a little bit with some Simple Green, and pretty soon we'll be throwing that new one back on. Hopefully no more leaks. Here was one thing on the Hydro Boost replacement that I couldn't really find on YouTube, is not all these units come with the master cylinder push rod pre-installed. So on mine, I had to pull out the spring plunger assembly and whatnot. And I just did it with a pair of needle nose. It wasn't very pretty or nice. And then installing this was a royal pain, but I found a pretty nice way to do it. It's hard to do this one-handed to show you guys, but a 1-inch socket actually fits perfectly on this little retainer clip in here. So if you just grab a socket and push as hard as you can, that thing just pops right in, goes right together, super easy. All right, well, we got the truck all back together, and Nick said I didn't film enough about this, so he got mad at me. So we're gonna talk about it on the bench now, in this oily mess that we got going on. So, as you saw, we replaced the steering box with the Redhead unit, and I wanted to go over what kind of screwed up on this one. So right out of the box, this seal on this spline for the pitman arm, whatever we got going on here, it pretty much leaked right from the get-go. Not as bad as the unit we had before, but I mean, for what's supposed to be a new unit, that sucks. And then on top of that, the steering for it sucked. Like when you're doing 70 mile an hour, it was just all over the road, and it was horrible. So I'm looking forward to driving it with the Redhead, but anything's going to be better than this piece of crap. Then when it came to the Hydro Boost, honestly, this could be an original unit. I don't really know. It seems like it's had its mileage on it. But what seemed to be going on in here is fluid was just leaking out. And I think that's why, if you saw in previous videos, we had just fluid all over the place on the driver's side of the truck. And I really think it was just power steering fluid eating everything and destroying it. So that one, we just got a new unit off of Rock Auto, and I'm pretty confident that'll fix all our problems. When it comes to replacing the steering components on these GMT 400s, they're really hardly different than any other classic Chevy. It's just 3 bolts that go through the chassis into the steering box itself, getting the drag link and the pitman arm bolted together, and then getting the rag joint bolted back onto the steering box. So it's pretty straightforward, especially with this chassis all cleaned and painted up. It made it a pretty simple process. So now you get to enjoy watching me crawl around without a lift and torquing all these bolts down, getting the cotter pins in, and just trying to get this truck back together. One little tip is I do like to typically wait to install these Zerk fittings until everything's on the vehicle, because you don't want to damage them, break them, and sometimes they can just get in the way. So even though it's kind of a pain, I do like to wait to get those on the truck. Now it's just torquing down these 3 bolts for the chassis to the steering box, and then all that's left for the box itself is installing the worst part, in my opinion, the rag joint. I don't know, they just seem like a pain to me. It's hard to get that cover in place and get that rag joint pulled into where it's supposed to, and sometimes it's open too wide or not open enough, and they're just a pain. So you get to watch me struggle with that a little bit, and hopefully it goes smoother for you, but this is definitely my most hated part of it. Honestly, I'm just being dramatic. It's really not that bad, but I'm gonna keep complaining about it. Now that the rag joint's tight, you got the cover in place, all you gotta do is throw those power steering lines on, and you're pretty much done underneath the truck. Alright, so we're about to get into the final assembly of the wing for this truck. So we got these new brackets made, and you may have seen us go through the process of how we made this initial prototype before. So these are made out of carbon fiber PETG, which is a pretty dang strong material, but we really wanted to make sure this wing wasn't flying off and going down the road as we're mobbing down the highway. So we remade them in nylon 12, added our logo on the side, and a couple other little modifications. Like we did a recess for the threaded insert that we put into the roof, and a groove for the O-ring, so this thing will just seal up as good as can be, and hopefully we don't have any more leaks in the roof or anything like that. So all we gotta do now is put the threaded inserts in and get this thing on the truck. Alright, that's all we needed you for. Get the fuck out of here. So that's good then. Alright, we got the wing on the truck, we got the power steering and hydro boost all figured out. Let's take it for a spin around the complex and hopefully that didn't screw anything up. But we'll find out. Alright, well now that we got the truck all back together, we're just going to drive it around the complex a little bit. And I mean, right off the bat, I can tell you my alignment's all screwed up, so I didn't keep that straight. But the front end does feel way tighter. So I think this redhead box fixed all our woes from that crappy AutoZone one that we threw in before. So I think this is the perfect example of you should buy the right one the first time and don't cheap out. Other than that, we'll have to see how the hydro boost holds up, but that was a brand new unit, so I'm hopeful that won't have any more problems. Up next, we're going to be hitting up Blue Sky Performance. They got a dyno, and we need a truck that needs to be dynoed. So we'll see what this thing finally makes. After the truck's dynoed, we're on the books to get this thing wrapped. So can't wait to show you guys that design, but that'll be coming up pretty soon with our buddy Steve over at Get Wrapped. And once we get the truck back from there, it's time to throw the Holley Terminator X. So we still got a ton of work ahead of us, but we'll see you guys in the next one.